We have three readers with us today. Danny Schott is our first of three. Of course, I know Danny Schott from Long Shot magazine for many, many years. He was, I think, poet laureate of Hoboken. He was born in the Bronx. I did not know that. Spent his 20s in the East Village, down the block from out in Ginsburg, back when it was cool to do that. Raised by German Jewish refugees, he spent the next 3 decades as a New York City public high school teacher, serving in the South Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn. His play, Roll the Dice, co-written with Larry Kelly, was performed at the New York City Theater Summerfest in September 2018. He spends his days gawking at the Manhattan skyline on his walks along the west bank of the Hudson River. And I remember we did a reading at a little university location there. We could look out over the river. We could see the ashes right after 9/11 in the Hudson River. Beautiful gentleman, Danny Schott.
And of course, Danny also lived in Dumont, New Jersey.
That's right, Dumont, New Jersey.
You're in Bergen County.
Thank you. That was such a generous, expansive view of New York. I have a feeling Ravi Bala, mayor of Hoboken, might take exception to you saying there's only one mayor. But that's a different
Eric Adams lives in Fort Lee, by the way.
That's what they say, yeah. This is a double honor for me. First honor is being here, home bred Wheelbarrow poets. That means something to me. And the second honor is being included in this book. New York City from the inside. George is selling them today. They're $20, which is a very convenient thing because you just hand him a $20 bill and you don't have to deal with change and stuff. And it's a terrific book. By all rights, I should read the poem that's in the book. However, it's one of those things, I really like the poem, and if you ask me, I think it's worth buying the book just for the poem. But it's one of those poems that I got a lot of mileage out of, but I've read it, I don't know if this happens to you as a poet, I've read it one too many times that it just doesn't work. So I'm going to read a couple of New York poems that are not in the book, even though my poem in the book is really good. Raging Bull. This happened before I was born, when my sisters Carol and Susan were very young, the early 50s. Our family lived in a one-bedroom apartment on Sheridan Avenue behind the Grand Concourse in the Bronx, right by Yankee Stadium. One night, a child was crying incessantly, followed by adults yelling at each other at the top of their lungs. My father opened the window and yelled down into the courtyard, "Won't you shut that child up? What's wrong with you people? We're trying to sleep around here." An angry voice yelled up, "Oh yeah? Who the hell are you to tell us to shut up? Get down here and we'll settle this like men. Get down here so I can kick your ass." My dad went to the door to get his jacket ready to rumble. It was at that point that my mom said to him, "Sounds like that racket is coming from the Lamadas downstairs." For the next half hour, a steady stream of profanities reverberated through the courtyard. "Get down here so I can kick your ass, you big pussy. Nobody talks to me like that. Get down here." My dad took off his jacket, turned out the lights, closed the window, pulled down the shades, and sat quietly in his chair in the dark, smoking cigarette after cigarette. Another New York poem many decades later. Kids. He is my favorite photographer. I've been taking pictures of skateboarders, he said. They're fantastic. We made arrangements for me to come to his loft in Tribeca and pick out some photos. When I got to his door, a young voice told me he was across the street at the Baby Doll Lounge. He was sitting at the bar, staring straight up at a stripper's crotch. I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm here for some photos. He was confused. Here? I don't think they want us to take photos. No, I said, of skateboarders for my magazine. Oh, he said, of course, have a seat. What are you drinking? Beer, I replied. You're a poet, right? Poets drink whiskey. I'm buying. 5 or 6 drinks later, his easy banter with the working girls was getting more worrying with each completed drink. My friend here is a poet. Poets eat pussy. What do you got for him? A bouncer who had been standing by the door grabbed him in a bear hug and deposited him on the sidewalk outside. I wanted to protest, but meekly followed. We walked across the street to his loft. Inside was a group of 8 or 9 teenagers lounging around. Skateboards were parked near the door. 4 or 5 of them, mostly girls, were crumpled in a heap on a futon by the wall. 4 others were playing darts on the other side of the room. Instead of hitting the target, the object of the game was to catch the dart before it hit the board. The famous photographer walked to the counter and opened a fresh bottle of whiskey, pouring full glasses for me and him before retiring to a chair in front of the coffee table. A few packets of photos for me to look at lay on the table. The teens were in various states of injury. One kid had a dart stuck in his arm. Others were bleeding from various wounds. The famous photographer looked over the carnage. Kids, what are you going to do? Before passing out. I took it upon myself to play Florence Nightingale, finding rubbing alcohol, cotton balls, and Band-Aids in the medicine cabinet. The teens were compliant, friendly, and not the least bit curious about what was going on. After maybe half an hour, the famous photographer opened his eyes. Kids, aren't they fantastic? I should make a movie. Why I'm a Mets fan? Because the Dodgers signed Jackie Robinson in 1947. Because Willie Mays played for the New York Giants. Because the Yankees waited until 1955 to play Elston Howard. Because Tom Seaver. Because I believe in miracles. Because I'm a Jew. Because of my dad. Because I love a good cry. Because Jacob deGrom is pitching today. Because baseball is what's best about America. Because none of this will make sense to a Yankees fan. That was fun, says the singer after the first song. Glad to see friends I haven't seen in the past year or so. Let's rock, let's move, let's sweat together. The next band tortures the sound man, or maybe vice versa, as they take the stage and launch into a pop tune about a heroin overdose. The next song's for the ladies, She's a Killer. It's a 95-degree day outside. Still, I'm dressed wrong in shorts and tee, like a New Jersey dad or granddad. Adrift in a sea of black jeans, mini skirts, Converse, and pointy trash and vaudeville boots. At the show at Bowery Electric, against Caroline's wishes, on a Friday night in the city. Grooving to the sins, sounds, and dreading the sweltering path ride home to Hoboken. Cindy says, how could I explain this to Henry? It's a dream. I don't know music or notes or shit like that. Cindy is beautiful, a model, a chanteuse. She thinks I'm cute. At 64 years old, what does that mean? Honestly, what has it ever meant? The world is different tonight. Are we too dim to recognize the reckoning, the shift, the churning dynamo of a riven world in flux? One more scotch and soda, turn around, look in the bathroom mirror. Hold in my gut. I look good. I'm alive. We're alive. Rock on. The professors. I don't teach Ginsberg, he says. Too problematic. Or Whitman, same problem. Besides, have you read what he said about manifest destiny? No, I reply, and I know Whitman's work pretty well. You have to look at his journalism to see his imperialistic sympathies. But he was writing in the 1850s, I counter. People had different beliefs. Wrong beliefs are wrong beliefs. I am sitting at a table at a Cuban restaurant celebrating the birthday of a friend. Most of our group of 12 are college professors. A few are also poets. All are younger than me. And Juno Diaz, I wish he wasn't so problematic because a lot of my students who identify as female like his work. So what do you teach, I ask. Audre Lorde is one. She's very good, I say. They're very good, he corrects. She's been gone a while, I remind him. I think if they were around, they'd identify as they. I don't think that's how it works, I offer. Sometimes it's hard to understand, he says. It's very confusing, I admit. I know, he says, it's a generational thing. At this point, I can no longer contain myself. That's why I call myself a liberal and not a progressive, because too many progressives are illiberal in their views. I might as well have farted loudly or declared myself a Nazi. The stunned silence is palpable. Finally, the conversation picks up, and I listen to another professor who previously said she was not rehired because of her politics tell the person across from her that she's not getting vaccinated until more research is done. Jesus Christ, I mutter loudly to myself, I need a cigarette. I wander across the street and look through the tavern window to watch the Jets blow another game. 50 years of losing and counting. Okay, this one was fun for me to write. A few of my friends and I were marveling in a weird way at the poems of Charles Simic, in terms of what he does and all. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna write Charles Simic-like poems. That's what I'm gonna do, short little things here. So I called the whole suite of poems the Jersey Slide, and it's in different pieces. Birds of Bayonne. Follow the path in Bayonne. Snowy egrets fish for whatever they can dredge up, pawing to the turnpike overpass. Cars crawl, honk, clamor. Jersey Slide, crisscross, cook the asphalt skyway. Colossus. We gaze at your backside. What a glorious ass it is, mother of exiles. We're the ones who heed your call, striving across the river, the racing heart of Manhattan, beacon of liberty and wealth, and perhaps the making it, whatever that means, whatever that meant. You called me a replacement child, and I had to laugh because I never thought of it that way. One life can't replace another, as Ronnie James Dio couldn't replace Ozzy, or Trump can't replace Obama. If anyone's a replacement child, it's Carol, not me. Fuck you, you fucking fuck. Carlos sits sullenly in his inside-out t-shirt, wondering when it was he became such a dick. Age. A middle-aged woman wearing a Dumont hoodie walks toward me by the river. Hey, I shout, I'm from Dumont. She looks at me, perhaps frightened, her Dumbledore sweatshirt glittering in the fog. Revelation. Unfortunately, my wife came to the conclusion that I was old before I did, and now anything I do proves it so. Two Jews in a small town on Christmas Day. We meet at 7-Eleven, smoke some weed, share a Slurpee, don't know what to do. Sheila says Grateful Dead. I say Sabbath. She walks alone in the snow. I stand frozen. The editor's lament. I have maintained my integrity, publishing only what I deem worthy, not trading favors with other poets. The literary community returns the favor with joyous vengeance. Okay, last one I'm going to read right now. Dispossession. The family never speaks of Lena, but here she is, my aunt from my father's side in the snack aisle at Acme that used to be AMP, after it was Food Town, after it was Pathmark, down the block from us in Hoboken, New Jersey. Lena stands in the snack section weighing a bag of pretzels versus a bag of Doritos. What foodstuffs in this new land of wonder? I follow her to the canned soups, Progresso soups, Chunky soups, Campbell soups, Well Yes soups, the flavors, the variety, all unkosher, all available, all on sale, buy 3, get 5 free. What sense does that make? Jesus stands in front of the liquor section, silent, newly dead. I saw his body at Our Lady of Saints, one of the few people I met who looked better in the coffin than he did on the streets. Jesus' name is Bobby. He was a homeless man who lived between 6th and 7th Street on the avenue. the stretch between the bagel shop and Dunkin' Donuts his domain. He's holding a Bud tall boy in a brown paper bag. Thanks, he says, the only word he ever says besides smoke when he sees me walking down the street. I nod to him in my usual way and follow Lena to the meat section, far from the pork chops, to the cuts of beef. So many choices, what's a lonely apparition to do? She surveys the possibilities, sometimes picks up a package for inspection, moving her lips as she reads the label. Lena was killed at Auschwitz. Her father, my grandfather, drove her out of the house with a raised garden hoe after her pregnancy became apparent. She moved across Frankfurt with her boyfriend, the army sergeant, who disappeared somewhere along the line. Her blonde-haired children, Wanda and Dennis, murdered at Theresienstadt. Family history we don't talk about. I don't talk about. I'm the only one left. Today, Lena is shopping at Acme, and Jesus is eyeing her as she touches the plums, so delicious, so out of season on this gray autumn day. He follows her as she glides down the produce aisle, past the scales and cabbages and spinach and lettuce and Brussels sprouts, until she gets to the front of the store and sees the pumpkins. What are these orange monstrosities? Only in America, if only America. Jesus takes her by the hand, past the sad cashiers, into the parking lot, where the shopping carts are scattered willy-nilly like the souls of her brothers and sisters. They walk off the grounds and disappear into what's left of this day, what's left of this world. Thank you.
One more time for Danny Shaw. There's really no point in my introducing Anton Yakovlev to you, since we're all fairly intimate terms with him. But I will say that we've done a lot of work together in Manhattan in various capacities at the Ballet Poetry Club, Carmine Metrics. He's putting together a reading at the Jefferson Market Library for the book, which should be a lot of fun. And I check out his Facebook travels up in the mountains, and did not realize that he put in his bio that he's spending a lot of time, many hours, hiking the more obscure mountainous trails of New York and New Jersey. But you'll see this on his Facebook page. My greatest excitement in working with Anton was to do a review of his book of translations of Sergei Yesenin, which is really a very, very important book for American readers to experience. If you have, again, I'm talking about stuff you already know. But having said that, I'll now introduce you to our second contributor to this book, New York and East Side, Anton Yakovlev.
Thank you so very much, George. And indeed, thank you so much for writing that video. It really meant the world to me. So I'll start with the poem from the anthology. It's called First Snow. If I met your eyes across the table, one passing of a salt shaker would have made our blood run forever warmer. Walking through Prospect Park, I wouldn't wait until the last bench to kiss you. We would rent a place on the corner of First and First, befriend the working poets who would improvise surrealist ballads at seeing us stuck on a median, crossing Houston. We would make impulsive decisions when buying lemons, make spreadsheets if planning travels, raise a few children savvy in French baked goods, or maybe remain alone, just the two of us. And even if we fell out, started separate families, we'd always be at arm's reach, even across the globe, even if we went decades without talking. But here I am, sitting under an oak, in a cemetery in Ridgewood, New Jersey, while somewhere in Malaysia or Norway, 2 of your ancestors are sharing a Coke. Rushing out to Whole Foods last night, I saw your shape on the hood of my pickup truck, traced in rock-hard snow. Over my head, the Almighty must have been grinning. When you look up at the same Almighty, you won't notice the change in the radius of the sun. Like me, you'll wish to know the nature of consciousness, drink coffee to fall asleep faster. And maybe one day, you'll pick up a metal detector, hover it over a beach where I've dropped some good luck medallion, dig it up, and wonder what it is. We now go onto the streets, somewhere. This is called the distant glow of public transport. Do I fall asleep sniffing in bed figments of doctrine? People I like flatten themselves to the waves and patterns that once inspired some great brain to pummel verbal images on paper. People I remember drink coffee with people I don't remember, and I judge them according to the waves and patterns that once inspired some great brain to pummel verbal images on paper. The coffee is sickeningly black. It might as well be coffee. And he who drinks it is doing funny little things with his watch. 15 minutes pass, nothing changes. She who drinks too looks at him, unobtrusively begs him to listen. And he does. Oh yes, he does. A man walks out of the bathroom with toilet paper. The waitress stops him. She finds him. Later she will write a poem about him. You stand by the wall, looking lost and bitter. At length, this scene is eclipsed by beautiful music that really gets to the bottom of the afternoon. You spin an umbrella, and raindrops pour over windows. In about 6 hours, they will be black, menacing. I will pass by them and turn away, choosing not to look. Someone else sucks up his pride and takes a picture, despite your dirty look. He will draw your portrait, beautiful, romantic, swerving your umbrella in the rain, sad like lilacs. Then a bus will splash dirt in it, giving you a long black nose and an extra eye on the forehead. It's been said, love gives people a third eye. I got my first and second shot, and see you in 2 dimensions, but what a sight you are, nevertheless. A glutton hurries past. A thin man stumbles. 10 years from now, he will become a senator. When I take my next breath, the artist has already erased your extra eye, and you love me no more. My own eye weeps, but sticks around. A web of medieval heraldry resurfaces on the pages of the great brain. That happened circa 1560. In 1990, his prophecies were refuted, and he was posthumously sentenced to death. I remember this, and fall asleep with a sense of great relief. Stray cats are tugging at my coattails. Meanwhile, in another country, impoverished not too long ago by some wicked bad people, a storm is gathering, and you adjust your collar. You need a friend to tell you things are fine. But he's been dragged off to face a firing squad last night. Besides, he wasn't even your friend. You hum bitterly, and a bus arrives. This poem is called Tender Buttons in Manhattan, and it's a found poem, or rather a centaur, compiled entirely from Facebook comments under the video, How the Button Changed Fashion, by Small Thing, Big Idea. Tender Buttons in Manhattan. I wonder what else in our world is simply waiting for its buttonhole. My Who Needs a Bra 14th century dress. I love buttons. I love buttons. Rick-a-rackin' buttons. Buttons are a nightmare to a 4-year-old. The struggle is intense. I knew a man who hated buttons. Buttons on the floor, pick them up. I remember going to button stores, quelling over each other's buttons. Some are sacred. Button tin or button jar? Oh, how I love buttons. I designed buttons and sold high-end buttons. Look up your local button club, State Button Society, or the National Button Society. So my buttons, gotta send some to you. I love buttons, but they are only good if your fingers can work. How many times have you found the perfect button? I advise you to visit the Museum of Button in Sant'Arcangelo di Romagna. I can finally admit to having a button collection. I love buttons. I love buttons too. I always remove the buttons before throwing the garment away. I have boxes full of all kinds of buttons. Round buttons are my favorite also. I have a jean jacket that I decorated with buttons. Let someone pick out the button. I need that. Hey, button lovers, would love your feedback on buttons. Changing the face of buttons literally. And button, who's got button? I love buttons. Tender buttons in Manhattan. I need to find buttons before winter. They are here for the long run. I love buttons. No bad button. Buttons, yep, I would like to meet more buttons all over the world. I love buttons. I need to shop for buttons. Okay? The Button Queen. I have boxes full of buttons. The Button Inspiration started a button jar. Me too on the button topic because of all those buttons on your new dress. Someone stole my jar of buttons. Buttons. Duh. Тема неисчерпаемая. And with a poem called The Exorcism. O reasonably well-known driver of the overrated light blue convertible, why do you bend machetes with your gray eyes? There's stage fright in the way you take left turns. When you pout, you spill dark thoughts in a pot. I suspect you come from the line of Baskervilles, post-doc. Commission or no commission, your paintings are full of spiders. You measure poltergeists in your home to predict the shrinking of St. Hilda's sheep. A distracted Charon, retired from Lethe, always picks up the ashes of your diary. A carillon rings in your head and you resent its sound, but enjoy the slow-boiled resentment. Even your mellow dog digs a good bone to pick. I saw you on Brighton Beach, the day after Christmas, just as you came out of the water. And yet, we react in the same way to the draft that makes toes curl on time-working winter evenings. Forget where you're going. Dress all in white. Close your eyes. Say something to the film crew outside your apartment. There is no duel on your schedule tomorrow. You'll be okay. Look, a new diner has opened just down the block. Thank you.
I'm really anxious. I do understand some of those things. But one of the biggest influences in New York City in American poetry was, and still is, a Mets fan, which is cool. You know, we got along until Roger, what's the name of the pitcher? Clemens threw the ball at Mike Piazza, splinted the bat, a piece of the bat rolled forward to Roger Clemens, and Roger Clemens, and the only thing he does on earth is throw things, leaned over, picked it up, and threw it at Mike Piazza.
Right rage.
Huh?
Rage.
Yeah. Pictures now of rage. Well, I wrote a poem about that, put it on, before this Facebook, I put it on MySpace. And this major New York City influencer said, that's not funny, that's not a funny poem. And I said, well, it's not about, it was justified that he threw the piece of bad in my piazza. It was just that this is all this human being does on us, so his instincts took over. Well, he didn't talk to me for 12 years because of that poem. So I learned my lesson about baseball. And with that, reconciliation is in the book. I won't mention his name, but he's in the book. I am pleased to have our third reader as a person who I've known for many years from Poets Wear Prada, as working with Jack Cooper at Poets Wear Prada. She's recently sent a very new, very long by Roxanne Hoffman, who was in New Jersey as. She runs the independent literary press, Poets Wear Prada, with Jack Cooper. And her works can be found in various locations in the cybersphere. Performance Poetry Preservation Project, Pedestal Magazine, that's John Heyman's, North Carolina, New Verse News. Her work's been set to music, various locations. She's been on the silver screen in 2005. Her poem, Indie Flick, Love and the Vampire, in print, of course. And in our book here today. Very interesting, aside from all of her many, many credits, is the fact that one of her current projects involves a novel entitled The Golden Cage and 54 poems riffing on Alfred Hitchcock, both conceived during 2020, the year one of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm very interested in, I think they're ABCD Darien poems, these 54 poems that are based on Hitchcock movies, which I think is going to be a fabulous collection. So, what we're going to hear from her today will be as equally surprising and wonderful as you heard from our first two readers. Please welcome Roxanne Hoffman.
It's a delight to see all of you guys again. Just, it's been way too long. That's all I can say. It's been way too long. So I'm gonna do the poem that's in the book, and then I'm gonna read some of the Hitchcock poems. So I'm gonna start with the poem in the book. Title of the poem is Flora Selva. Hidden in my hand is a rose in bloom that is my mom. Flora Selva is her middle name, flower of the jungle. She took a cutting of herself and planted me in between the cracks of concrete called New York, where I grew wild and thorny, a prickly bush that didn't bloom. A man came by. He gently pulled me out and planted me in the soft, cool earth of a large clay pot to take me to his garden state so I could flourish and bloom. Hidden in my hand is a rose in bud about to bloom. Flor de concreto, flower of the concrete. That rose is me. Anyway, so it's 54, I think there's 54 films, but I'm gonna do a few that are actually set in New York. And the first one is gonna be After Rear Window. Hang on, just a second. Okay.
Christopher Street.
Yeah.
Actually, 8th Street.
Yeah, in the village. Aperture's black hole. After Rear Window, Hitchcock, 1954. ambient blow-up, cameraman's dark clothed eyepiece, freeze frames golden hour interiors, journaling kissy and loud-mouthed married neighbors, Oculus panning, questioning rear window sfumato tableau, umpteen viewfinders widening, X times y'all zoom in. And the next one. Crisscross after strangers on the train, Hitchcock, 1951. Amateur athlete, bête noire charmer. Double dares exchanged. Funhouse grew, home invasion jollies. Killer looks. Murderers? No, never. Only polite, quirky repartee. Strap-hanging twins until victim number one. Wasted. Xantippe, yours truly, and Zibolus. Champagne dreams. After Rope, Hitchcock, 1949. Altercation, body. Champagne corks, candelabra. Dinner dished out. Enter friends, family, faculty, greeting hosts. Ironic juxtaposition. Killers, lovers, mix. Nibble, ordinary people at play. Quarry, reposed, served tribute under veil of white linen, X'd out by young zealots.
Already graduated in Brooklyn, by the way.
And I'm going to do one more. And this is just a silly one. This is Good to the Last Drop after North by Northwest, Hitchcock, 1959. Admen, badmen, collide, converge. Dead, drunk decoys emerge from grills. Gentlemen, gray-suited and lamb. Hoteling identities, judged killers by knives, lovers metamorphosize. Non-existent operatives, Oswald boating on the lamb. Persistently present, quirkily romance. Sidestepping, tumbling, only to transcend, until vetted, wedded, a happy end. Exfold yesteryears, yonder years past, zestfully, zygosty, good to the last. And I didn't even know about it until the last minute when George said he had picked this poem that I've written and probably read 1,000,000 times for it. So thank you, George.
Roxanne's poem is about, her mother used to call her a particular flower, of course, a crack in the pavement. And it was really an appropriate poem, to have in the collection. I'm going to read 3 people who are not here today, and then we're going to conclude this portion of it and go to the open mic, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing everybody here in the open mic as well. This first poem by Yusef Komunyakaa, The Last Bohemian of Avenue A. Joe Top and I decided to give back soil to itself. following a merry-go-round in Central Park to harvest horseshit. We'd lug it here to Alphabet City, wrap the dome in flower seeds with cheesecloth, and then toss the balls into those bare lots of apartments torched to ashes by landlords. The sun and rain began a bidding till the gobs split open and wormy tendrils took hold in the damp dirt. Nasturtium, yarrow, bird's foot, cosmos, and rose to kill blight. I hardly hear early cocks anymore along my avenue from C and D, as it trumpets for the all-night conjurers and newspaper hawkers from bygone days. Now everything's the next corner, or dust in the fortune teller's eyelids. But I can't forget brazen crowing from coops hidden from pepper pots. Statues and birds of paradise, those feathered warriors paraded as if on the edge of empire or outpost. A cure for homesickness, fresh eggs for breakfast, and a little shade beneath a stunted flame tree. In a basement room on Fridays, they fleeced dishwashers, janitors, dog walkers, short order kicks. But Lower Side grew into a refuge, budding toward 3 rumors of crepe green shadows this side of the Bowery as sweat and blood sought the brag of Spanish gold. Yusef Komunyakaa. This is by the Abenaki poet Joseph Bruchac from upstate. City of dreams, stone on stone, we see you, Manhattan, not just as you are now, but as you were, as you always will be, in our lodges of memory. Held between rivers and the deep breath of ocean, you remain the place of many meetings, words sung in many tongues, the mother of dreams. You were never sold. You cannot be bought. Just Bruchac. And Robert Bly lived on Baker Street for a time when he was young. He also taught NYC on a different occasion. He gave me this poem just before he passed on. I'm proud to have this in the book by Robert Bly. Winter afternoon in Greenwich Village. Sunday afternoon. The shadows seem so frightening on the brownstone sills. The Missouri River must be flowering the same muddy brown. The boatboats cross the river silently in the naked moonlight. I cannot say why a Sunday afternoon in a New York apartment should seem to be night among the teepees at Jackson Hole. Jim Bridges lugs his Shakespeare through the stumps. In his shack, he swears at Iago far into the night. Outdoors, a beaver swims in the mountain stream, feeling with his nose the door of his home like a beehive, moving in a darkness the color of Indian hair. The tips of the small willows move about the silent water. Thank you all.
This is a poem I wrote when I was waiting online with Jeff Wright to get our contributors' copies of this book. It originally started as a haiku and it expanded a little from that. Any poet who's ever been a featured poet at a place will recognize at least some of the words in this. It's called New York Story for Jeff Wright. And the way it came about is we were waiting online and somebody, fellow poet came up and said, oh, sorry Jeff, I missed your reading. I had blah, 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 blah. New York Story for Jeff Wright. Sorry I missed your reading. I didn't know about it. I was down the shore, had to wash my hair, the Jets were in the playoffs, the in-laws were in town, vicious hangover, been feeling insubstantial, the train got stuck underground, a passenger was sick, someone fell on the tracks, I thought it was next week, the kids showed up unannounced, the evening news was deflating, she wouldn't stop talking, too many glasses of wine, found a spot on my forehead, my ex bummed me out, had a serious migraine, the internet went down, I was coughing and worried what people might say, the keys couldn't be found, I didn't want to run into Manny. Dee Dee said you canceled. I was watching Mrs. Maisel and lost track of time. The fridge lost power. Sorry, bro, I just forgot. Hurt my ankle on the treadmill. The weather said torrential rain. Bootsy coughed up a hairball. The sushi buffet was a mistake. I was stuck on the couch. The weed was too strong. Got scared to go out. Was caught in a maelstrom. Lost an earring in the shower. Can I watch it on YouTube? When are you doing it again? Maybe next week? I'll do my best to come. Trust me, I'll be there. I'll be there.
This poem is called The Man Who Remixed Your Soul. I walked with you through Washington Square Park, transmitting the voice of God, but you didn't notice. I set fire to the orange in your Manhattan, but all you wanted was to change the station. I called myself your life's signature oasis, but you drowned me in static. So then I buried myself in a potter's field, and you wouldn't stop spinning requiems. My ears had loved you even in your past life, but you jumped to the next track and got lost. By the time you came back, the man who remixed your soul had gotten permanently stoned. These days, I try to spot you in every park, but the voice of God is all I hear.
Okay, so this is actually not my poem. This is Autumn in New York, which I didn't realize actually has an introductory verse, so I'm going to read that and then sing the song. It's time to end my holiday and bid the country a hasty farewell. So on this gray and melancholy day, I move to a Manhattan hotel. I dispose of my rose-colored chattels and prepare for my share of adventures and battles here on the 27th floor, looking down on the city I hate and adore. Autumn in New York, why does it seem so inviting? Autumn in New York, it spells the thrill of first nighting. Glittering crowds and shimmering clouds in canyons of steel. They're making me feel I'm home. It's autumn in New York that brings the promise of new love. Autumn in New York is often mingled with pain. Dreamers with empty hands may sigh for exotic lands. It's autumn in New York. It's good to live again. Autumn in New York. The gleaming rooftops at sundown. Autumn in New York. It lifts you up when you're run down. Jaded roués and gay divorcees who lunch at the Ritz will tell you it's divine. It's autumn in New York. Transforms the slums into Mayfair. Autumn in New York. You'll need no castle in Spain. Lovers that bless the dark on benches in Central Park. Great autumn in New York. It's good to live it again.
This is yesterday's poem, Rock and Roll. I am in my tender years. I have calluses on my fingers. I have a 12-string guitar and live in your town. I have 6 miles of pickup wire and a real cool amp. I am blind in the stage light to everything but the song. Barely 17 in the crucible of time. Literal as fuck. Slick as liquid nylon. What I know of love, I can hold in the palm of my hand. What I know of desire can be stuffed into a pair of kick-ass blue jeans, set off like dynamite. I'm vagrant. I'm plugged in. I'm perpetual. I'm a rotating spin machine. I'm an American dream. Boys envy me. Girls ride home from the dance in the back of daddy's car, imagining I am holding hands with them. I'm too much smoke. Riff like thunder. The drummer's uptight. The lead singer's high on cocaine. This gig's going nowhere. So what? There's always tomorrow night and another dive bar to get lost in. I am playing a love song too hard for love. I'm too bold. I'm too idealistic. Too punk. My guitar won't go where my heart leads me. I'm too restless. Too contrary. But I am playing for you. Only you. I am your very young lover. I will live forever on the precipice of this game, whacking hell out of every lie ever told in this sorry little town. Rock and roll.
Thank you so much once again. Thank you to all official leaders. Thank you for making the trip. Thank you, George. Thank you, Danny, Roxanne, all the open mic leaders. It's great to see everyone, and see you next month.